Hello, guys. Welcome back. And the topic for today's video is going to be the fifth chapter of the book, The Psychology of Money, written by Morgan Housel. And the title of the chapter is Getting Wealthy versus Staying Wealthy. So, as you can tell by the title, we're going to discuss how people manage to get wealthy, but very seldomly um, they actually stay wealthy. It's two different things. So we're gonna start off with the story of Mr. Jesse Liverman. He was born in 1877, and he was a professional trader, as known by most people. And by the age of 30, he was worth adjusted to current inflation, and he would be worth $100 million. And so he was basically a well-known investor. And then in 1929, as you guys already know, there was a market crash that actually ended up in the Great Depression. And during that market crash, nearly third of the value of the stock market was basically wiped out. And that was the month of October, and the week in which that happened, they named the days of that week Black Monday, Black Tuesday, and Black Thursday. And so, as the crash happened, Jesse Livermore, his family was basically really worried that day that he might not come back home, because there was news going around that the traders are committing suicide, and then his family thought that he might also have done the same. So Jesse goes back home and sees his family, his wife, his kids really worried and crying. And then he later tells them that he actually did not lose any money, but rather he ended up making a lot of money because he was betting on shorting. He was shorting the stocks, like he was betting that the stock market will go down. And based on that bet, he made quite a lot of money. And the amount of money that he made, if you account it for today's value, it was around $3 billion actually that he made in a single day. uh, s- and then we're going to move on to another story, which is of Abraham Germansky. He was also a multi-millionaire real estate developer. He was also a trader. And the thing with his story is that instead of betting the stocks, betting on the stock market going down, he actually betted more on the surging stock market. And as the crash happened, he lost most of his, rather almost all of his money. And then most probably he ended up taking up his life. So then what happens after a few years? Few years later, um, that Jesse Livermore also ends up losing all of his money because he, looking at his success before, he kept on betting again and again that how the stock market would behave, right? And one of his assumptions, one of his bets, basically did not go really well, and then he also ended up losing a lot of money. He disappeared for 2 days, and then he also eventually ended up taking up his life. So the moral of these two stories is basically both Jesse Livermore and Abraham Germansky. Both of these guys knew how to get wealthy, but none of them knew how to stay wealthy. So so here we can say that they are two different. They're really two different things: getting wealthy and staying wealthy. So we can also elaborate with a few more points. There are, like, for example, 40% of the companies that are successful enough to to have an IPO, like the public offering. Uh, Only like 40% of those companies actually um, end up losing almost all of their value. 40% of them, right? And then if you look at the list of 400 richest Americans on the Forbes list, there is a turnover of 20% every decade, and that is not because they die or transfer their wealth to their family member or someone else. So yeah, so here, as we saw with the previous stories and with these two examples, is that uh, getting wealthy, getting successful is one thing, but staying there is a different thing altogether. And we can say that getting wealthy actually requires us to make some risky steps. We have to be a little bit optimistic when we are investing, while we are making money, and then we really have to put ourselves out there, right? But when it comes to basically staying wealthy, it's we have to do exactly the opposite things. um, Staying wealthy actually requires us to be humble. It requires us to be a little bit fearful, and it also requires us to be a little bit frugal. Um, so the so we have to basically think in a completely opposite way when it comes to um, when it comes to keeping what we have made. So, someone actually asked Michael Moritz. He's the head of the very successful firm Sequoia Capital, and someone asked, like, most of the VC firms, they don't stay successful for long. So what is the secret for your organization? Why it is so why it has been so successful over such a long time, 4 decades to be specific. And then Moritz actually replies that he like they are successful because they are always thinking about not getting out of business. So the point here it is that after they have become successful, they are not thinking about like the new strategies to be, more successful or make more money, but rather the focus is on how they can stay alive, how they can avoid avoid being wiped out. Um, so so yeah, so that is basically the important point. Like uh, you think about how you're not gonna get wiped out, uh, and and the other thing that actually comes into play when it comes to keeping money and when it comes to surviving is first, as I mentioned before, avoid yourself from being wiped out, as we saw with the previous examples. Don't make repeated bets on something that can. There is a possibility that they can end up taking away what you have already made. And the other survival mentality, another very important trait of survival mentality is, as we have discussed in the previous chapter, is the compounding, the maths of compounding. So yeah, two things. And when we talk about compounding, it's we have looked at the example of Mr. Warren Buffett, right? How he made how he made his fortune over the span of almost a quarter of a century. And during those years, during that long time, it's very there is a high possibility that you might end up making a few decisions that will cause you to be there is a possibility that you might lose your wealth. When you look at that long of a time period, that time period, right? So the thing with this was that Warren Buffett, over this long time, he did not make the same mistakes as the other people did. He did not get carried away with debt. He did not panic and sell everything, because during those 70 years, there have been like 14 recessions that he has lived through. He did not stick to only one strategy, and he did not burn himself out and quit and retire. So all of these qualities are basically survival qualities when you look at them. And so yeah, so the summary so far, I would say, is that when you talk about keeping the money that you have already made, we have to change our mindset. We cannot think the same way as we have thought when we were trying to make money. It's actually the opposite of how you make money. And as I've said before, it's more about survival. To make the right decisions to survive and keep what you have already made. So yeah, this is the first part of the chapter 5. We're going to continue in the next video with the second part of the chapter 5, and I guess I'll see you there. Have a good day.